Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. This is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Here's an update on Florence. I'm getting inundated with a lot of questions, and I'll try to answer as many as I can, but I'd like to do these videos to try to answer the ones I've seen that I haven't been able to personally reply to. Here's what's going on. I think a lot of information out there. We live in an age with a ton of social media, a ton of information, 24 cable. A lot of stuff's being thrown at you. So I think it's confusing a lot of people. The one thing I would caution you is stick with official forecast for now. And then think about the uncertainty in the long term. Don't get caught up in what you see in a model here and there and think that's what's going to happen. The official forecast is the best way to look at this. And that's what I'm going to start with because it's really important to see this and understand what you're looking at. This was the 5 a.m. advisory. There was an intermediate advisory because now it is threatening land, so we're getting position updates from this, and we have hurricane watches up for the coast. But this is the official forecast right now. Now, because it's the official forecast, the thing I always like to caution people, they always focus on the middle of the track. This cone still means that the potential for this storm to go here and here is still 70% possible. And believe it or not, statistically, there's a 30%, I think it's 33% actually, probability that it could occur outside of the cone. But the goal of the forecast is to keep it within this range. So because it's in the middle, don't think down here you're out of the woods or you're up here you're out of the woods. There's really nobody in or near that cone that's out of the woods yet. It just means that the impacts are different based on where the center of circulation goes. So let's talk a little bit more about that. This is a close-up view of the forecast. You can see I have the track on here. I'm going to throw it up here in a second if I can get it to pop up. So there's the track, and I hate putting that cone on there, or the actual line track, so I'm going to take the line track off because it's not going to be a straight line, as we know. So you get an idea on where the circulation is. Now here's the thing. The thing you're seeing in some of the models that I think is confusing people is we expect the steering currents to weaken. So we're pretty straightforward with the forecast till about here, which is going to be Thursday night into early Friday. What gets a little fishy and wonky here is as it approaches the coast, it's going to slow down. It's going to be like the brakes are put on this storm. And it's going to get into some weak steering currents. Now, weak steering currents show up in the models pretty easily. When you see a lot of crazy stuff showing up with all this weird movement, and I'm going to show you the models here in a second, you could see the models get a little crazy in your landfall. Though notice a majority of them are still on this side. It's just once we get here, some do a loop, some go this way, some go this way. The spaghetti becomes very squiggly there. Now, most of you would say, oh, that's great. These guys don't know what they're talking about. Well, actually, this is a really good indication that the steering currents are weakening. When you see the models get crazy like this, the steering currents are breaking down. It means that the models are struggling with knowing where it's going. Now, to put this into perspective, think about if you ever had a paper boat as a kid that you put into like a stream. If the stream is all flowing in one direction, it's pretty easy to see where it's going. But if the water is calm and you put that little boat in the water, you know, it kind of bobs around depending on a gust of wind here, a push there. And so it kind of drifts. And that's kind of what's happening in the atmosphere here with Florence. It's getting to a location where there's not a lot of current. It's just going to drift like a bobber or a paper boat in a calm lake. So it's going to meander around. So what does that mean? Well, unfortunately, if it stalls near the coast, it means it hammers the coast for several hours again and again and again. But it's not going to stay strong the whole time. Remember, a stalled system is going to weaken over time. And all the models, which doesn't get shown enough of, if you ask me, is showing that we have a Category 4 storm near landfall, but they all show a pretty rapid decay of the storm. And that's mainly because it's going to cause upwelling. It's going to be interacting with land. So from an intensity standpoint, you're probably saying, phew, that's good news. It's going to weaken. But the bad part about that is it's going to dump a tremendous amount of rain. So for the Charlotte area and points west and inland, and I got to break this up by kind of the western part of the states and the eastern part of the states. The eastern part of the states, you need to get out. If you live anywhere near the water, you need to get inland, evacuate. The storm surge and wind is going to be tremendous. Now, inland areas, this is going to be all about flooding because here's what I think could happen. If we're going to see some crazy stuff happen, the track could shift a little this way or this way, sure, but I'm more concerned that it stalls and that over the weekend, the remnants or the low or whatever's left of Florence drifts back to the west and starts bringing all this heavy rain back in this direction. So if you live in the western part of the Carolinas, your biggest concern should be, holy moly, what if we get this rain to drift back to the west? And just to show you, this is the current forecast, this is currently based on the track. The heaviest precip is right here, but I tell you what, if it moves inland and then stalls and drifts this way, you might as well take this and throw it back here, and this area would absolutely get clobbered. So for Charlotte West, our biggest concern is that we could see a huge flood event after landfall. We're talking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, possibly even into Monday. Now, what are the chances we get this stall to happen, and where does it occur? We're still focused on these steering currents, which now is this high pressure here, but coming down from the Great Lakes, we've got another high right here. I'm sorry about my drawing, which is going to act like a big brick wall. So when the storm gets up here, it's not going to be able to go here or here. It's going to end up getting stuck. And so when it gets up here, it's going to become a calm area where it's going to meander this way or meander this way or do loops or do something crazy. So when it gets here, we're going to get all kinds of crazy loops going on, and that's going to be problematic for the storm. So let's take a look at the storm right now. I got a visible loop here. You can see it's going through these eye wall replacements, and I talked a little bit about this last night, and it's meteorological talk for it's basically breathing. It's going through a big eye wall that shrinks down to a little one, and a new one forms. So these concentric eye walls, Hugh Willoughby, was the professor that came up with this theory that these concentric eye walls would shrink and you would get a small one. And this shrinking of the eye walls causes a intensification, and when that wall completely shrinks down and goes away and a new one forms, the storm temporarily gets weaker. So this is just a phase that we expect the storm to go through. But if you widen out the view a little bit more, the thing you can see that is now due south of Bermuda. Bermuda's way up here, right there. It's due south of Bermuda, and it's made it to 26 north, which is about right here. So it is moving west to northwest, so it's getting some latitude right now. And the water vapor loop shows that as well. You can see that movement to the northwest. So for our area, and I'm specifically speaking about the Western Carolinas, our biggest concern is going to end up being rainfall. But on the coast, we've already got all of these hurricane watches up, which means hurricane conditions are expected to start within 48 hours. So if you're in the hurricane watch area, you need to go ahead, get to a shelter location inland. Now, I've been inundated with questions about evacuating if I'm inland. If you're inland, you do not evacuate, okay? Unless you're told to by officials. If you're in these areas inland, now if you want to get out of the way just voluntarily, that's totally up to you. But we don't normally tell people to evacuate inland, because where would you go? You could evacuate this way and go into worse weather. You could evacuate this way and go into worse weather. You could go this way and end up in flooding. So you're better off staying put and getting out of the way for evacuees coming from the coast, and you hide from the wind. You run from the water, hide from the wind. So in the Western Carolinas, you need to prepare for flash flooding, mudslides, power outages. That's what you're concerned about right now because of rain and winds coming in. And that's really the concern for our area. I'm doing a bunch of briefings with people here in the Western Carolinas. We need to still be on guard for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You have to be in this for the marathon. This is not a sprint. This is going to be a long duration event. Just because the storm hits the coast, it's not over. That's just the beginning of the event moving inland and becoming a big issue. So the 11 a.m. advisory will be coming out shortly. Of course, I will post it. We'll see if they shift the track a little bit. But in honesty, remember, the track could still be anywhere in here. This storm can still impact anywhere in this area. So if you live anywhere in this area, in the Virginias, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Western North Carolina, you need to be ready for the potential for the impacts from Florence, from heavy, heavy rain inland, strong winds, and on the coast, huge, maybe record storm surge and destructive winds. So I will post updates as much as I can. Obviously, a lot going on for me as well. I'm pushing out information as much as I can and as possible. Just remember, I may not be able to reply or answer all your questions. Don't worry, I still read them, and I kind of take a mental note. So when I do another video or an update, I try to address that in this. So I'm getting a lot of questions about model difference. Boy, that's a conversation we need to have over a couple of drinks, because the difference in models, it's a giant mathematical equation, and I could spend days talking about that. Just know All models are different. They have different inputs. The data going into them makes a big difference. They're tools. They're not forecast people. Remember, it's just like having a bunch of tools in your yard, having a bunch of saws and lumber and nails. That's not a house. That's what puts a house together. So we use these tools. We use these models to build a forecast, and the forecast is built off of them. They're guidance for a reason. They help guide us. They don't make the forecast for us. So hope that answers some questions. I know this was a long video, but there's a lot going on. I will post another vlog today. We'll do some Facebook Lives. Check me out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm posting all the updates I can to all those platforms and YouTube as well. Have a great day. Please prepare now. Don't wait. Start preparing. And if nothing happens, great. It's better to be safe than sorry. Even inland areas. Don't freak out. Don't, go like we're going to get another major hurricane in the Western Carolinas, but you need to plan for the extended power outages and flash flooding. That is a big, big concern for inland areas, and still a concern I have even in Charlotte.